Recently, I stumbled upon a study proposing that low-dose radiation may be safer than has been assumed. The study reports that a specific type of abnormal human cell in petri dishes repaired radiation-induced genetic damage more efficiently at lower doses than at higher doses. The researchers inferred from this limited finding in abnormal cells that all normal cells in all people may repair damage more efficiently at lower doses. And therefore, current standards for protecting the public from radioactive pollution may not be necessary. A conclusion that's music to the ears of the nuclear industry and its allies who funded the study. The study claims that it undermines the linear no-threshold, or LNT model, depicted here. In the LNT model, the risk of cancer is proportional to radiation dose in a linear fashion. The LNT model is recognized by the consensus of the scientific community and is typified in the United States National Academy of Sciences Beer 7 risk model. The LNT model is universally endorsed by radiation protection agencies. But this new study proposes to support the nonlinear threshold model shown here. The threshold model proposes no or negligible cancer risk from lower doses of radiation. The study in question was conducted by researchers at the United States Department of Energy's Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory. The Department of Energy is not an objective party when it comes to radiation research, because it has an agenda to promote the nuclear industry, as it openly admits in these excerpts from an official Department of Energy video.
Any forecast for a clean energy future for the United States or the world requires a strong role for nuclear power. We funded about $170 million over the last 3 years to about 70 of the nation's top universities, research programs that are supporting all aspects of nuclear power. We're working to ensure that nuclear power is ready to have its contribution to the clean energy future.
Spearheading the DOE's pro-nuclear science agenda is its low-dose radiation research program, which funds studies that consistently attempt to undermine mainstream science and redefine low-dose radiation as harmless. So it comes as no surprise that DOE-funded studies are routinely published in Dose Response, the journal of the International Hormesis Society. The Hormesis Society promotes the fringe hormesis theory, which proposes that exposures to low doses of toxic pollution are healthy, a dream come true for polluting industries like nuclear. And we can see that the DOE's online portfolio of funded studies includes 16 studies published in the Journal of the Hormesis Society. Given the DOE's pro-nuclear bias, this recent study comes as no surprise. In this DOE study, the researchers exposed immortalized human cells in petri dishes to radiation. The researchers report that these abnormal cells repaired genetic damage caused by the radiation more efficiently at lower doses than at higher doses. Therefore, the protective responses of these cells appears to be non-linear, unlike the linear LNT risk model. From this non-linear observation in one abnormal cell type, the authors make a giant inferential leap to changing public safety policy. For example, in the section of the study entitled, quote, Impact of Results for Regulating Risk of Ionizing Radiation on Human Populations, end of quote, the authors conclude, quote, Therefore, extrapolating risk linearly from high dose as done with the LNT could lead to overestimation of cancer risk at low doses." End of quote. Being the conclusion of the public policy section, this is an unequivocal appeal to public policy activism, and specifically an appeal for lowering the limits on public radiation exposure. Whether or not these cellular observations are true, leaping from petri dish to public policy is just bad science. Studies like this DOE study on cells isolated outside of the body in petri dishes or test tubes are called in vitro studies. In vitro studies are recognized as the lowest level of medical evidence. This low ranking is depicted in the evidence pyramid of medical studies. This example of the pyramid is from a State University of New York online tutorial on evidence-based medicine. The higher up on the pyramid a study type ranks, the higher quality evidence it produces. So the best evidence comes from the top of the pyramid, where we find systematic reviews and meta-analyses, and the lowest quality evidence comes from the bottom of the pyramid, where we find in vitro test tube research. And the DOE study in question is precisely in vitro test tube research producing the lowest quality of evidence. It should go without saying that public policy should be informed not by the lowest, but by the highest quality evidence. And the highest quality evidence routinely supports the mainstream LNT risk model. But the DOE study is not just flawed by leaping to public policy. It's also flawed for failing to cite higher quality evidence published in a peer-reviewed journal the year before. In 2010, Bhatti and colleagues published a meta-analysis that found higher than expected levels of radiation-induced genetic damage at low doses in humans, not in vitro. The findings of Bhatti et al. Are exactly opposite to the inferences the DOE researchers made from petri dishes. And because Bhatti et al. Was a meta-analysis of in vivo studies, which means studies on cells inside the human body, Bhatti et al. Is at the top of the evidence pyramid, whereas the DOE study is at the bottom of the pyramid. So Bhatti et al. Inherently trumps the DOE's lesser quality study, and Bhatti et al. Indicates that low-dose radiation is more harmful than expected. Considering Carl Sagan's maxim, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, the extraordinary claim that mainstream radiobiology got it wrong, and so we should change public safety policy to allow more radiation exposure, requires extraordinary evidence, not the lowest quality evidence that the DOE study uses to argue for new public safety policy.